Hi everybody, Patty Nance here. I'm going to show you how to do a side linking seam on a piece of Bargello knitting. So right here I have the cuff of a sock, and the first step here is you want to make sure you have bound off your waste yarn stitches, which I have on both edges. And the next thing we're going to do is you need to turn this over to the wrong side and count the number of side loops that are held open by the waste yarn. One side is going to have one more loop than the other, and that's what tells you which side to start with. So I've already counted mine. I have 36 along this edge. I have 37 along this edge. So it's the side with 37. That's the first loop where I'm going to place my crochet hook to do this linking seam. So I have folded this so it's forming the tube, and you want to kind of turn the waste yarn so that it's kind of tucked in, and what is exposed are the loops that have been held open while you were knitting. So here we go. Here's my crochet hook, and again, this side is the one that had 37. So I'm going to find the very first loop. It's this guy right there. First loop held open. So place the crochet hook in that one. And then reach over to the other side and insert your crochet hook into the first loop over on that side and pull it through. Now go back to the side you started on, insert the crochet hook through that loop and pull it through. And just keep alternating sides as you go, pulling through. Okay? It doesn't really matter if you insert the crochet hook in this direction or in that direction. It doesn't matter which, as long as you're just consistent and do it the same way each time. So going this way, inserting the crochet hook and pulling it through the loop that's on the hook. Reaching across to the next loop on the other side, hook it and pull it through. Hooking, pulling through. It's okay to really tug on these things so that you get the whole loop without splitting the yarns. So just keep hooking and pulling the loop through. All the way through. And you can see here why I say to use a contrasting color. I prefer the white cotton, crochet cotton, when I'm working with a wool yarn for the Bargello knitting, just because if I used wool, it would the fuzz would catch on my working yarns, and that makes it kind of hard to work with. Just to give you a shot of what's completed already, this is what it looks like. You see, I'm not being bashful at all about yanking on these loops to really get some space to work with. It's okay to really tug on these things. So I'm almost at the top, and you'll notice you just want to make sure there's always going to be a yarn tail up there at the end. So you're going to secure the last loop with that yarn tail. So I'm at the last loop on one side. And looking for, that was the last loop total. Okay. So now what I have is a yarn tail, and I'm just going to crochet through that last loop with this yarn tail. And just do a couple chains. Pull it through, and it's secure. So that's what it looks like on the wrong side of your work. Here comes the magic. I'm going to flip it out to the right side. And here's the tube. And you can see that the color breaks line up pretty nicely. Just how I wanted it. You'll see this this speckled section. It progresses just how I wanted it to. Okay, so I'm happy with this seam. If I were unhappy with it, I just pull the crochet hook out before, you know, if I'm not happy with it, you can undo the secured loop at the top, undo it, and then just pull this apart and it will unzip. I'm not going to show that here because I like this seam. I'm going to leave it the way it is. So now is the fun part, because as if that wasn't already fun. You want to remove the waste yarn. So starting with the bind off at the top, closest to the live stitches, I just undid it. Now all you have to do is tug on it and it will unravel. Now my waste yarn has a bunch of knots in it just because I pieced it together as I was working. So I'm just pulling on it. You can pull it so it unravels a little bit. I find it easier to remove it if you undo a bit of it first, like I'm doing here. And then here's the end. Because of those knots, I'm just going to tug on it. Now once you take the waste yarn out, you are set in stone with this seam. You don't want to unravel that seam or unlink the seam after you've removed the waste yarn, because it is really difficult. Those loops just shut themselves up and they just close down and it's hard to find them again. So remove the waste yarn only after you're happy with the linked seam. Okay, pulling the final bit out. That's one. Waste yarn removed. Here's the second one. Again, you can see why I like to use crochet cotton for waste yarn, because the unraveling part, if it was wool, it would be really fuzzy and it would stick to itself and stick to the working yarn and get really frustrating to try and remove. There we have it, linked seam. And unless you really tug it apart, it's kind of hard to tell the difference between it and the intarsia seam. So there's my linked seam. Looks a little different when you really stretch it, but it's very hard to tell the difference. Okay, and there you have it. Sock cuff Bargello knitting. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye.